Um, Come on in, sit down. Now, I will say this. This is America. This is America. We get to make our own choices and do what, if we want to go to a certain store, we can. Or if we want to go to Wendy's instead of McDonald's, we can. The back three rows, you can sit there if you like, but they are reserved for double tithers. If you don't mind moving up a little bit, that would be great. Dottie, I know you can't, but if you think about moving up, that would be great. Take your dark blue hymnals, turn to song number 312. We'll sing what Alice was playing as the invitation this morning. Rejoice in the Lord. Rejoice in the Lord. And Alice, when you get the introduction, okay. Song 312. God never moves without purpose or plan. When trying his servant and molding a man, give thanks to the Lord, though your testing seems long. In darkness he giveth a song. Oh, rejoice in the Lord, he makes no mistake. He knoweth the end of each path that I take. For when I am tried and purified, I shall come forth as gold. How many know this song? You know this song? New song? Wanda, new song? Sung it a couple times? All right. Elvira, do you and the girls know this song? What else? Okay. We do have a teen class. Brother Dylan is teaching a teen class, so if you want to go to that, it's over there. But Danny, you must be a teen. You can't just go. Okay? All right. Second verse, I could not see. I could not see through the shadows ahead, so looked at the cross of my Savior instead. I bowed to the will of the Master that day. Then peace came and tears fled away. Oh, rejoice in the Lord, he makes no mistake. He knoweth the end of each path that I take. For when I am tried and purified, I shall come forth as gold. Let me ask again, how many know this song? Or let me put it this way, how many this is the first time you've sung this song? The first time. Okay, because I was really hoping I'd get you trio up here to sing it. But, all right, let's go back, first verse, and then we'll sing the last verse, okay? This kind of goes along very well with this morning's message. God never moves without purpose or plan. When trying his servant and molding a man, give thanks to the Lord, though your testing seems long. In darkness he giveth a song. Oh, rejoice in the Lord, he makes no mistake. He knoweth the end of each path that I take. For when I am tried and purified, I shall come forth as gold. On the last verse. Now I can see testing comes from above. God strengthens his children and purges in love. My Father knows best, and I trust in his care. Through purging, more fruit I will bear. Amen. Oh, rejoice in the Lord. He makes no mistake. He knows at the end of each path that I take. And when I am tried and purified, I shall come forth as gold. Amen. It is a good song. And it really went right along with the message. Went right along with the message this morning. I threatened Dallas. I said, I may have to slip into my Leuven Brothers harmony, which they were a country group that sang very high harmony. No, don't do that. But she didn't hear me, but on that third chorus, I did slip into it just a little bit.
The interesting thing about that, Ron Hamilton, who wrote that song,
Yeah.
who was Patch the Pipe,
Yes.
just died, and he died of dementia.
Yeah.
But he went through it.
Yeah. At any rate, all right, we're going to start a series of lessons on Baptist distinctives, and they matter. And today, it's just kind of going to be a little bit of an introductory. Why am I a Baptist? Why are there Baptists? You know, you got a lot of churches, a lot of choices, a lot of assemblies out there you can choose from. How do you know which one to pick? When you go on vacation and you pick a church, which one do you pick? One of the things that I really appreciated a lot about Brother Dana and Miss Christina, but when they felt like God was calling them away, they began immediately to look for a church. And they knew what town, the area they were going to move to, and so they went online and they found several churches, and they dialed in on one, and they started watching the services, got to know the pastor, talked with him, and when they got there to the location, they went into church, they joined. I got a text from him, he said, it's like we never left, you know? And I said, that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to be. But you want to know why you are who you are. So Baptist distinctives matter. I'm going to jump around here a little bit in my notes. What is a distinctive? A distinctive. Anybody, can you give me a definition? I've got the definition written, but do you have it in your idea? Mind's idea? What? A what? Defining factor. Anybody else have something? Something different than anybody else. Okay, that's the dictionary says having a quality or characteristic that makes a person or thing different from others. That's why, as a Baptist, you go to our Baptist church, and if you went down the road to a Pentecostal church, you go, something different. You went down the road to a Catholic assembly, something different. Went down the road to, Community, Methodist, there's something different. There's something different. If you used it in a sentence, you could say something like, come on in. You could say something like, this store sells very distinctive chocolates. How many like chocolate? Oh, I got a chocolate story to tell you. So, you know, every once in a while you get if I say hankering, do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, okay, a desire. And it's a distinctive desire. And I was hankering for some chocolate brownies, some brownies. But I like brownies with walnuts. You like, I got a frown back there. Oh, no walnuts, huh? Get them walnuts out of here. You like those? At any rate, so I like those brownies, and I go, oh, so I bought a box of brownies and made them up and had some walnuts in them. I said, that was okay, but needs more walnuts. So I've seen in the store they have these sliced up walnuts and what have you, so I go down the aisle and I get these walnuts. And I pour them in. Oh, made them a lot better. That's what your problem is. You need to try walnuts. Made it a lot better, and I said, good, that's good. So usually I just leave them in a dish and I cover it. And but this last time I did them, I said, I'm going to cut them up, put them on a plate, and I'll set them in the microwave. That way I can wash that dish. Okay. I'm down the road and I get this call from Alice. Donnie, we had one donut and those brownies left, and Sadie got them. Sadie's my Great Dane, our Great Dane. Well, Sadie, the counter's here, and Sadie's right here like, yeah, I'll take some of that, and I'll take some of that. Now, she didn't eat a whole pan, but, it was a 9 by 11 pan, but I figured she got like 9 by 9. No, it's not good for dogs, but it was bad for me because I didn't get those brownies. It was, no. I think Alice probably just hand-fed them to the dog, so I wouldn't have them. Any rate, I backed off the brownies, but brownies are good for you. But some stores sell very distinctive brownies. What would you say a synonym of distinctive might be? What word? We actually read one in the definition. Well, different. Characteristic, individual, peculiar. Take your Bibles and open to 1 Peter chapter 2. He can take it. He can take it. 1 Peter chapter 2. Raise your hand when you're there. This is interactive here, okay? All right, you there? 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 says, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation. What's the word? Peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. As I was thinking about verses to use to kind of springboard, and I was going through the definition of distinctives, and it said peculiar is a synonym. I thought, a distinctive people. We are to be different, not just in our walk, but in our theology. We're not to be different from God's word, but we're to be different like God's word. Like I was talking about this morning about the refining of gold and how you burn off all the impurities. And when you can see your reflection in it, you know the impurities are gone. And the idea is that I'm going to see his reflection, and people will see that reflection in me. The Bible says in Proverbs 14:12, there is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. There are a lot of different churches out there. A lot of different choices. How do I know I'm in the right one? Well, if you hold to that the Bible is what you believe for all your faith, this is who I am, this is how I live my life, I'm living out my faith, and the practice then of that faith, then this is all you need. You go to the Mormons have the King James Bible, which is interesting. Of course, they have a disclaimer. They believe it inasmuch as it has been translated correctly. They have the Doctrine and Covenants. They have the Pearl of Great Price. They have the Book of Mormon. Catholics have other books that they have included into their canonization of God's Word. It's interesting. And so when you start doing things like that, you start getting a collection of man's ideas, man's thought, and what have you. So let's have a word of prayer, and I'll just try to go through this briefly. It won't be real long, I don't think. Okay, Father, as we take time tonight and get into your word somewhat, I pray, God, that we would realize that you have designed a perfect church, and you have designed a perfect way to govern that church, and for that church to live for you and practice their faith for you. I pray, God, that as we take a few weeks and try to learn what we call Baptist distinctives, which are really Bible distinctives, that we would grow in you, and our knowledge and strength in our faith would grow in you. Ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Kind of said it in my prayer. Why is it important to know Baptist distinctives? Because they're biblical. Because they are biblical. It comes from God's Word. This is not my thoughts. This is not somebody's, hey, I got a great idea. It's interesting. You go back, if you are familiar with recent church history, and you'll see conventions, you'll see fellowships and different things like that. And a lot of times they're only around for a generation or so. And then what happens? Somebody else gets a better idea, another idea. What you have to be careful of and watch as you're doing things like that, that you don't just keep stepping farther and farther and farther away from God's Word. So distinctives are part of God's revealed truth in His Word. The knowledge of these facts provides us a practical benefit and a relevant to today. And these are what will help you to select. Nobody gets to run off from McKee Road Baptist. We've lost our last member. Nobody else gets to leave. You have to die here. We're going to bury you under where you're sitting. That's so you can. That's so we can just continue to count you on the roll. But this enables you to select the church. This enables you to look out there and go, oh, there's a problem there. I see a problem there with their doctrine. Baptist distinctives demonstrate the meaning, the worth, and the significance of the name Baptist. There are a lot of churches that are dropping the name Baptist. It's very interesting. You have to ask yourself, why is that? Why is that? Well, I think to some, it's almost offensive because they're looked at as a hardline Baptist. Oh, you believe every jot and tittle. Yes, I do. You believe everything it says. Yes, I do. And I think what it comes down to is it gets in the face of those that might be offended about having the name Baptist in the church. It gets in their face, and it's really revealing their sin and what's going on in their own personal life. You might go out and see a church with the name Christian Church or Christ or churches labeled community. And I'm not talking like those are bad churches. I'm not saying that. But they're it's kind of a non-denominational feel. It's okay, well, what do they believe? It used to be when you went to a Baptist church, I had a pretty good idea what you were about. Now, I can remember as a child growing up, and we went on vacation, and we went to a church, and they were doing the Lord's Supper. A lot of churches do the Lord's Supper like on a Sunday morning. Some do it every 5 weeks. Some do it twice a year, or whatever. And I remember I looked over at Dad, and he looked at me, and he goes, and we didn't take the Lord's Supper. You know why? It's a local church ordinance. When you don't belong to that church, You can't take that. It is and that's what we practice here. That's what some people might call a closed communion. But we need to understand who we are. But the churches like that are kind of ambiguous in just their name. And thereby they are ambiguous in their doctrine. You go to these many churches. I'm not going to try to lump everybody in the same. There are some good churches out there that don't have the name Baptist on them, okay? Some churches have determined, for whatever reason, they don't want to have the name Baptist. I respect that. However, Baptists do have a history. And again, you might want to ask yourself why. And I come back to that people drop the name many times. And I've just seen it over the last several years in particular. You know, the name Baptist falls off and we're called, you know, whatever. In the New Testament, they were called the people of the way. I mean, if Baptist wasn't around and we were doing a church, maybe we'd call McKee Road Baptist people of the way or something like that. But at any rate, the name Baptist is understood through its distinctives. When you have these distinctives that we're going to talk about over the next few weeks, you will be known, well, I'm a Baptist. I'm a Baptist because I believe that. That's taught in God's Word. I don't think any longer that we live as much as we did formerly. Well, not me. Somebody said, what would you be if you weren't Baptist? I said, ashamed. You know, kind of joke. That's what you should be. But it has particular doctrinal truths that we hold to. And the Baptist distinctives helps us to maintain the position in the church. I'm the 14th pastor of this church. We have bylaws that were written. They've been amended a little bit. But I believe they were drafted probably in the early 80s that we hold to. This is what we do. This is who we are. But not so much because of those bylaws, but because of this book. That's what we do. We deal with, there's 8 distinctives that we deal with. I'll just mention them briefly. And the Baptists are remembered as Baptists by associating with them. If you take the word Baptist, B-A-P-T-I-S-T-S, you have 8 letters. The first Baptist distinctive is biblical authority. Well, let me back up. Let me give you a memory verse. 2 Timothy 2:2. 2 Timothy 2:2. Tim, when you find it in your King James Bible, if you'll stand up and read it, 2 Timothy 2:2. Okay. You know, if we don't know this book, how are we going to teach it to those coming up? Peter, to your children, we need to teach this book so that when they're here, if God continues to allow them to stay here and they're not gone off and are pastoring somewhere or they move to another area because of their job, they need to know what a Baptist is. And that needs to be carried on. That is not a tradition. That is biblical truth. That is a biblical distinctive. So take 2 Timothy 2:2. Your homework assignment that's your memory verse. Memorize that verse this week. 2 Timothy 2:2. By the way, did everybody get a book or no? How many need a book? How many need a book? You didn't get a book yet. Keep your hands up. My lovely assistant here. She makes me call her the First Lady. Smack him. All right. Okay. Anytime we do something like this, and anytime I speak on something or preach on something or teach on something, it's not to be taken as that's everything about that topic or subject. That doesn't include everything. It's just something to kind of pique your interest, perhaps. Feel like that's what God has had me to speak on. But you can take it from there and grow from there. So, the First Baptist distinctive, biblical authority. Biblical authority. You can write notes if you want. Biblical authority. It's the final authority in all matters of belief and practice. It's what we talk about. Belief and practice. Second Timothy chapter 3, verses 15 through 17. Says, and from a child thou hast known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith which is in Christ Jesus. Then it says, all Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect. Not that you're going to be perfect, but that you'll be mature in his word and in him, truly furnished unto all good works. I go back to 16. It's inspiration of God. How dare we take and start changing it? But it's the absolute authority. No opinion of any church should be able to override Bible distinctives. Second one, A. So B-A, all right? Autonomy of the local church. Autonomy of the local church. Do you know what autonomy is? Basically, it's self-governing. Self-governing. We are not part of a convention. Southern Baptist, many people are saved. But Southern Baptist even, they have a convention. And from that hierarchy of that administrative group, a lot of decisions are made which are passed down to the local churches. This is what you're going to do. This is the way you're going to do it. Autonomy of the church. We have no one outside of this church that influences this church. We make our decisions as a body within this body. And of course, it goes without saying that those decisions fall in line with the truth and teaching of God's Word. So, you can look at Colossians 1:18. It's talking about Christ here. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence. Might have the preeminence. You have a lot of groups out there today that you could join yourself to that are from a man. from a man. And they get the preeminence. But God's church, he gets the preeminence. So a local church, autonomy of a local church, self-governing. P, something that we don't talk about a lot, but it's the priesthood of the believer. Priesthood of the believer. A priest is defined as one authorized to perform the sacred rites of a religion, especially as a mediatory agent between humans and God. Okay. In the Catholic Church, if you sin, mess up, what do? Go in that little booth, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. He's supposed to be that priest. Well, the Bible tells us that we are priests. We are believer priests. Every believer is a priest of God. And because of that, we can enter into his presence in prayer daily through our great high priest. That's amazing. It's amazing when you stop and think of it. If you can grasp, this is a place where I would tell my children, look at me. Look at me. Everybody, look at me. Everybody up here, I want to see your eyes. You have the ability to go right into the throne room of God. God Almighty. That's an awesome thought. Okay, you don't have to look at me. Let's look at 1 Peter chapter 2. We've not been in 1 Peter for quite a while. 1 Peter chapter 2. Verse 5 says, ye also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house and holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God by Jesus Christ. Verse 9, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation, a peculiar people. We read that earlier, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. So we have B, biblical authority. A, autonomy of the local church. P, priesthood of the believer. Now we got a T. What do you think it might be? What do we do here? What's that? What'd you say? Theology? No, but it is theology. Huh? Teach? No, that's a good one, but no. 2 ordinances. What are the 2 ordinances that Baptists practice? Baptism and the Lord's Supper. Baptism and the Lord's Supper. We should practice this. Turn to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians. I know some of you are thinking that my Bible only had 1 Peter in it, but 1 Corinthians 11. 1 Corinthians 11. And from verses 23 to 32, you have them. Well, it says, for I have received of the Lord that which also I delivered unto you, that the Lord Jesus, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. And it gives us instruction for the Lord's table. The Lord's table. Baptism, we know, and I don't think we get all out of baptism that we should today. But baptism, we have all been told that it is the first step of obedience in following Christ as your Savior. Now it's time to be baptized. Now, a lot of churches teach 6 lessons of baptism and what it means. A good friend of ours been home in heaven for a number of years, over in Vallejo, that used to do a 6-week, and it was important because he understood that there was importance to baptism. However, what's interesting in God's Word is that when you look at somebody getting saved, there's not a gap between salvation and baptism, they were immediately baptized. But also baptism was a testimony to those watching that I have renounced what I believed, where I was in my head, and I follow this man, Jesus Christ, and the people of the way. And it is a testimony. And as those that have testified that happening, we should, when that person may happen to step out of line, say, hey, I remember when you were baptized and your testimony was that you were going to follow the ways of Christ. How can I help you? How can I help bring you back? 2 ordinances. So we got biblical authority, autonomy of the local church. We have priesthood of the believer. We have 2 ordinances. Now we got I. This is one where you have groups that have splintered off. And Calvinists are a big one. This is individual soul liberty. God made man with free will. We should know this probably better than any people in the world because we live in America. What do you want to do today? I don't know. Thinking about maybe going over to the ocean, maybe do a little surf fishing, maybe going to the mountains, doing this, doing that. I have freedom of choice. I can do what I want to do within the guidelines of the law, obviously. I can do what I want to do. Freedom of choice. In the garden, the Bible says Eve was deceived, but Adam, out of his free will, chose willingly to eat of that fruit. And therein he sinned. And death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. But as a people, we have an individual soil liberty. There are those that would teach that, you know, they use the word election. And I talked about this 3 weeks ago, about how there's 6 places in the New Testament that talks about elect in reference to the child of God. And it's basically just a title of who they are. Doesn't mean they were elected to be saved. What a God that would be, to die on the cross. In my mind, first of all, that would be kind of a harsh thing for God to do with his son, to say, I'm going to be down on the cross, but it's only for a few people. That doesn't make sense to me. But at any rate, we all have individual soul liberty. And because of that, no one should force us to believe like they believe. And I'll get into this a little bit later here, but the Catholic Church is very good at this. They go in and conquer a land, and you're a Catholic. Well, I'm not. Well, then you're dead. You know? You either believe or you don't. So individual soul liberty. So you have biblical authority, autonomous church, priesthood of the believer, 2 ordinances, individual soul liberty. Got an S here. Saved, baptized church membership. Saved, baptized church membership. In a Baptist church, you don't just come to church and you're a member. You're a member if you've been saved and baptized, maybe you moved to the area, like when Dana and Christine went back over there. I don't know if they joined by statement of faith or if they're asking for a letter, but they've been saved and baptized. That enables them to become a member of that Baptist church. If you're not saved, number 1, you can't be a member of this church. But number 2, if you're not baptized, you're not a member of this church. A lot of people get a little lax on that. The local church membership is restricted to individuals who give a believable testimony of personal faith in Christ, and they have publicly identified with Christ, And they've done it so in believers' baptism. And it's a whole other study on what is the proper baptism, the proper mode, and those sorts of things. And we know that baptize was taken from the Greek word baptizo, so it's transliterated, and it means to immerse. Immerse. So turn to Acts chapter 2. Verse 41. This is what the Bible says. So okay, we come back to, are we a true New Testament church? Are we a true New Testament local church? What makes us a true New Testament local church? Well, Book of Acts is all about that. And it talks much about following in the apostles' doctrine. In verse 41, it says, then they that gladly received his word were put on a 6-week list to possibly be baptized. No. It says you were baptized. Well, some might argue, but they don't understand. They don't know. They don't. Oh, I can see your logic. That's just not the Bible way. I think what we do a lot of times is we would never say it out loud, but we think maybe we're a little bit smarter than God. Lord, that's a good plan, but they need to have a little instruction first. They really don't understand that. Received this word, were baptized, and the same day there were added unto them about 3,000 souls. What's the them? That's the church. That's the church. When we have somebody that's saved and baptized here, they're added unto them. Who? The McKee Road Baptist Church. And they continued steadfastly in what? The apostles' doctrine, and fellowship, and in breaking of bread, and in prayers. And the result, and fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done by the apostles. And all that believed were together and had all things common. And sold their possessions and goods and parted them to all men as every man had need. I look at that and I think, wow. Wow. That's real love. When you're willing to say, I've got more than I need here. Matter of fact, you're in a 2-bedroom house, and I live in this 10-room mansion. I think I'll sell it. I'll go into a 2-room house, and we're going to spread this out to those that need it. I mean, that's what it was going. That's what was going on. They took care of one another. They loved one another. Verse 46, and they continued daily with one accord in the temple and breaking of bread from house to house. They did this Jesus thing in their houses. In their houses. What's done in our houses? TV? Chicks? To me, that's talking about they did this child of God thing. They took it seriously. It changed their lives. Did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. We're a small church. We might go quite a while in between somebody being added to church. I believe if God truly had his way, if we were about his business like we should be, he'd be adding to this church on a more regular basis. So we have the authority of God's word. We have autonomy of the local church, priesthood of the believers, 2 ordinances, individual soul liberty, saved, baptized members. We got another T. Another T. It's 2 offices. 2 offices. As simply church, elder, deacon. Pastor, deacon. There's three terms. It's called pastor, elder, bishop, or overseer. All refer to the same office. And the two offices of elder and deacon exist within the local body. Within the local body. Not outside the local body, but within the local body. You know what's interesting to note? Is that there are requirements for a pastor. There are requirements for a deacon. There are requirements for a deacon's wife. There's not a requirement for a pastor's wife. I had a preacher say to us one time as he's preaching, all the things that I am required to do, you should do, and you should be. And he was right. He was right. So T. So let's see if I can do it. We have biblical authority, autonomy of local church, priesthood of the believer, two ordinances, individual soul liberty, saved, baptized member, two offices, and another S. This is big. Separation of church and state. You know that when the Baptists came over to America, they had escaped from the Church of England, the King of England. Don't allow people to rewrite history. They weren't a bunch of criminals that came over. They were people seeking religious liberty. But when they left, they brought along with them some tenets of the church that they had been a part of. What was that? That church was in governing power, in tandem with the governing power. Back around 312, 313, you had Constantine. You know of Constantine? In the battle, and he saw the cross. What did he say? So, in this you conquer, or something like that, he said. And from that, you have the melding of the Catholic Church into the government. You know what they did? If you didn't belong to that body and they went around conquering land, hey, you're killed. You're killed. Let me read you something. I guess what I'm saying here, I don't want to get ahead of myself, and I apologize if I'm keeping you too long, but Baptists came over here and they wanted us to be like Massachusetts, I think. Will you be our state religion? Now the Baptists said, no way. No way. Why? They went back to this individual soul liberty thing. You have freedom of choice. And in America, you have the freedom to choose incorrectly. But it does no good for me to force you to become a Baptist if you've not received Jesus Christ your Savior. It won't get you 1 inch closer to heaven. So they understood that. There had to be a separation of church and state. And I need to say it this way. It was a separation of, how do I say it? State from the church. Not the church from the state. They got it backwards. They say, oh, you're doing this. You can't do that. To which we should be able to say, you got it backwards. Hey, you can't do that. I can do this. Distinctives originated through God's Word. I want to read this. You go to a hospital, go to have a procedure done. And, you know, I know some of us have had some surgeries in here recently, and they'll say, what religion are you? You know, so you put down, I'm Baptist. Oh, you're Protestant. No, I'm Baptist. Well, that's a Protestant. No, I protested nothing. In the Reformation era, you had groups of people that were within the Catholic Church that did recognize the error of their ways and were trying to come out of that and teach truth. And that's fine and good. But God has always had his church here on earth. Do you think that it went into the first or second or even third centuries and then that true church left? No. It's been known by several different names. It's known as Monetists, Novationists, Donatists, Albigenses, Waldensians, Anabaptists. A lot of different names. A lot of different names. But we are not Protestant. Baptists never splintered from the Catholic Church. Okay? Lutherans and Episcopalians, yes, they did. We didn't splinter from groups like Methodists. And history proves this to be true. How many have heard the name Sir Isaac Newton? Sir Isaac Newton. Okay. This is what he said. The modern Baptists, formerly called Anabaptists, are the only people that never symbolize with the papacy. He recognized it. He was saying they were never Catholic. They were never Catholic. Now you might think that's an isolated statement. Let me read you another statement. If the truth of religion were to be judged by the readiness and cheerfulness which a man of any sect shows in suffering, the opinions and persuasions of no sect can be truer or surer than those of the Anabaptists. Whence there have been none for these 1,200 years past that have been more grievously punished, or that have more cheerfully and steadfastly undergone and even offered themselves to the most cruel sorts of punishment than these people. Wow. You know who said that? It was a Catholic cardinal. These 1,200 years had to be right in the Reformation era. He even wrote this. He said, were it not that the Baptists have been grievously tormented and cut off with the knife, killed, during these past 1,200 years, they would swarm in greater numbers than all the reformers. Wow, powerful stuff. So Baptists are not Protestants. Our heritage is not about a single person. I bring it up because it's so prevalent, and it's Calvinism, and many good people are wrapped up in it, and people I love, but they just can't be. They just cannot be. But when you talk to them, they talk about people. They talk about John Calvin. Do you know that John Calvin, the founder of so-called Calvinism, many with his spouse, that you talk about people being burned at the stake, that he stood and watched one of his good friends being burned at the stake because they said he was teaching heresy? Now, folks, just talking about my experience with God and the love that God's put in my heart, if I see somebody burn at the stake, I don't care if they're my enemy. I'm going to try to run and save them. Now, how can we stand there and watch that? But at any rate, we have a mandate. We have a mandate. And the mandate is to adhere to God's word and the teachings of God's word. That's why we talk about these Baptist distinctives. If we don't go by this book, if we go outside of this book, I don't care how good your idea is. If it's outside the teaching of this book, I'm trying to edit here. I'm thinking that as long as it is in line with biblical scripture and principle, well, it's good. That's good. But not, throw it out. You go into some churches, They do not allow video. Some churches do not allow this. Some churches do not allow what they call canned music for somebody to sing by. Does that mean that they're not? No. That's just the practice of that church. That's all fine. But this is what we believe for all biblical authority. At any rate, you got your books. Take your books and go through the first lesson for next week, and I'll try to teach a lesson on that. I'll try to answer your questions. Be diligent. Be diligent to study. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed. I just don't know what to say. Why? Well, because you haven't studied. You know, when I would go to school, I always hated it. We had a reading assignment, and the teacher would go, okay, I'm going to ask some questions. And I really hated it, Peter, when they would just call on you.